All right, Karen's here, so before we get started, I'd like to welcome Pastor Jason Howard, the Director of the Adult Ministries with Stone Creek Church, to lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, bow our heads. Father, we come to you tonight as we start this meeting. And Father, as we do every month. And first, we pray for our mayor, Joe Lockwood, and also our council members, Councilman Thurman, Kuntz, Lusk, Hewitt, Longoria, and Councilman Large. And Father, we just pray for them and their families, but more importantly, we pray for their vision, for their focus, and how they lead and guide this city. God, we just are so blessed to have, again, a council who honors and invites you into just the decision-making process and creating a city that continues to be one of the best, not just in the state of Georgia, but also, God, in the nation. God, give them the guidance and I think just the vision for what you want to see happen in this city and continue to improve just everything here, God, for the residents of the city of Milton. Father, just thank you again for just your word and for your guidance, and we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Wednesday, February 20th, 2013 to order. Will the city clerk please call roll and make general announcements?
Mayor, I'm going to start off because I've got her script and then I'll hand it back to her.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Be happy to call roll for the February 20th, 2013 regular meeting, where I'd like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Additionally, those attending the meeting would like to provide public comment either during the public hearings or during the call for public comment. You're required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There's no public comment for consent agenda items or items in the first presentation. Now, those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will please identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable. City Council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group or association, provided, however, that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the agenda item call. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you would expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman.
Here.
Councilmember Matt Coons.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Hewitt is traveling and excused. Councilmember Joe Longoria is with us by phone tonight, which is an amendment to the open meetings law that allows him to call in, and we're just going to need him to do a couple of things at this point, is to say that he's with us and then also let us know where he's calling in from. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Councilmember Joe Longoria.
Where are you calling from? Here he is.
I am calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Lance Large.
Here.
Now, would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, Mr. City Clerk. And want to welcome everybody here tonight. We appreciate you being here. And I'm going to ask the City Clerk to call our first item.
Our first item is approval of meeting agenda. This is agenda item number 13038.
Okay, I know there's a couple things we need to change. Chris, you want to
Mr. Mayor, yes.
add an
there's
emergency?
two things that I'd like to amend at the approval of the meeting agenda. The first is to add an executive session to discuss current litigation. And the second is to add on an emergency basis under new business, a resolution of the Mayor and Council of the City of Milton in opposition of House Bill 176, which is a limitation on municipal zoning authority for cell towers. The reason that becomes an emergency basis at this point is that the General Assembly is in session, and our next meeting potentially would occur after a final action has been taken on that particular House bill, so I want us to be able to consider it tonight. Those are the two items I have.
Okay, are there any other items to consider, council or staff? If not, I'll open up for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as stated by staff, except to add an executive session for current litigation and a new business item a resolution opposing agenda item number 176, House Bill 176 regarding cell towers.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the published agenda as well as those two additional items. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, next item is public comment. First, ask our city clerk, we do have some public comment.
We just have zoning this
Okay.
evening.
All right. We don't have any general public comment.
No,
I'm
sir.
going to go ahead and read the rules anyways, just as it could relate to zone. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. No discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentation from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for remarks. Now we will move over to the consent agenda.
Our first item is approval of the February 4th, 2013 regular city council meeting minutes. This is agenda item number 13039. Next, approval of a professional services agreement, task order, between the City of Milton and Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for additional design support for Birmingham Highway at Providence Road intersection. Agenda item number 13040. Our next consent agenda item is approval of a construction services agreement between the City of Milton and Engineered Restorations, Inc. for bridge deck repairs to Wood Road Bridge over Chicken Creek. Agenda item number 13041. And lastly, approval of a license agreement and email distribution agreement between the City of Milton and Broker Savant, Inc. for online commercial property listings. This is agenda item number 13042.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as prepared by staff.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, let's move on to our reports and presentations. City Clerk will please handle the first item.
This evening we have a proclamation recognizing National Girl Scout Cookie Day 2013. This is being presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay, on our agenda, we've got a proclamation honoring National Girl Scout Cookie Day, which took place on February 8th. Because of their work selling these famous cookies, the girls learned goal setting, decision-making, money management, people skills, and business ethics. Great tools to have going forward in life. I'd like to read a proclamation and then have, and it looks like we've got a representative from Girl Scouts to be here to join us, the council, after I read this proclamation. Whereas National Girl Scout Cookie Day is a day designated to celebrate the Girl Scout Cookie Program and the 5 basic skills girls learn by participating in the program: goal setting, decision making, money management, people skills, and business ethics. And whereas for more than 100 years, Girl Scouts have been engaged in girls' lives, serving as a resource and expert on their growth and development. And whereas through the Girl Scout leadership experience, girls in grades K through 12 discover themselves and their values, connect with other girls, and take action to make the world a better place. Now therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the city of Milton, do hereby applaud the commitment Girl Scouting has made to support the leadership development of girls in the state of Georgia, and proclaim February 8th, 2013 as National Girl Scout Cookie Day as part of the Girl Scout Cookie Program. And if the council would join me, along with our Girl Scout. I'll have to say we laid calls today of the Girl Scouts that were going to be here, couldn't make it, so Judy stepped up and got it. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Shouldn't you have the Girl Scout cookie mom in there too?
We don't have anything under first presentation or public hearings, and we'll move on to our zoning agenda. If the city clerk will please read the rules.
At the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, the mayor and city council consider zoning agenda. These items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules and procedures for this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of an application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time remains with the allotted time. The city clerk will be keeping track of time and will inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the city clerk prior to the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization if applicable before beginning their presentation. The Planning Commission has heard the rezoning agenda items, and recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and city council for consideration and disposition. In addition, the applicant shall not submit material to the council during this meeting unless requested to do so. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the council in consideration of your application should be submitted to the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respected local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Our zoning item this evening is consideration of RZ 1215, 15260 Hopewell Road by Reunion Park LLC to rezone from AG1 Agricultural to H Historic District for the existing building to be utilized as a country store on .5240 acres. This is agenda item number 13032. First presentation was at the February 4th, 2013 regular council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. The subject site contains .5240 acres. It's a vacant 1,179 square foot structure formerly used as a country store. The applicant seeks a rezoning to the H Historic District for a country store. I have to go back. That slide shows you the existing zoning on the site, which is AG1. That's the existing zoning. I believe we'll go on. The next slide shows the 2030 comprehensive plan map, and the comprehensive plan shows this area is called for agriculture, equestrian, and estate residential. It was a site plan submitted October 4, 2012. However, this plan was superseded by a revised site plan submitted January 9, 2013. And the essential differences between the original site plan and this revised one really dealt with the driveway entrances and the configuration of the parking on the site. In terms of background, on August 20th, 2012, the Mayor and City Council designated the historic building as historic. This requirement must be met prior to a request to rezone to the H District. Additionally, Section 64-95(3) subsection C states, The proposed historic use shall be limited to those historic structures identified on the subject property and may not be expanded. Therefore, if this request is approved, a condition will be provided listing uses to be allowed based on the previous historic use of the structure. This item was deferred at the November 27, 2012 Planning Commission meeting to the January 22, 2013 meeting to allow time to resolve traffic issues and propose zoning conditions. There were 4 citizens who spoke in opposition at the January 22nd meeting stating the following. 1, inconsistency with the future land use plan and AG1 uses surrounding the site. 2, hours of operation not addressed. Proof of fuel tanks removed, not addressed. Site distance issues. Traffic study not conducted on a good date. Parking issues. Not to allow catering, delicatessen, and carry-out uses. Planning Commission's recommendations at the January 22, 2013 meeting was approval conditional. The Planning Commission recommended approval conditional based on the following additional recommended conditions. 1, that the site distance for 45 miles per hour be satisfied, that uses be the same as the prior use, but do not include delicatessen, catering, carryout, and that no food preparation be conducted on the premises. 3, the proposed signage as proposed by the applicant should not be approved, but shall be consistent with the requirements of the existing sign ordinance. In regard to the site plan analysis, pursuant to Section 64-95-4, Development Standards for the H District states the following. In order to allow for the unique nature of the properties receiving the H District classification, there are no district-specific development standards. However, all other requirements of the subject properties overlay district and the City of Milton zoning ordinance, including but not limited to those identified in Section 64-955, shall be maintained. In addition, the Milton City Council shall consider the subject properties overlay district and City of Milton zoning ordinance as it pertains to the proposed historic use and may adopt reasonable conditions of zoning with respect to the following without the need for a variance. Per the following sections, the applicant and staff are requesting the following conditions for the subject site as requested per a revised letter of intent received by the Community Development Department on January 9, 2013. 1, Section 64-1141, subsections 3A. Reduce the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback to a 10-foot landscape strip along the south property line of the property intersecting with Hopewell Road and running north 68 degrees, 21 minutes, 12 seconds west, a distance of 89.69 feet. Staff notes that this is already mentioned in number 3 below. Therefore, this condition is not required. 2, Section 64-1141, subsection 3A. Reduce the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback to a 10-foot landscape strip along Thompson Road and a minimum 40-foot buffer at the easterly end to a 36-foot buffer on the westerly end along the south line of the property, parallel to Thompson Road, running from the corner of an existing driveway north 80 degrees, 44 minutes, 27 seconds, west 190.43 feet to the westerly property line. And this will be shown on the site plan in orange. That site plan will be forthcoming in a minute. Continuing on Section 3. Section 64-1141, subsection 3A. To delete the 50-foot buffer and 10-foot improvement setback along the southwest property line of property running from Hopewell Road, north 68 degrees, 10 minutes, 12 seconds, west 89.69 feet, and north 21 degrees, 34 minutes, 48 seconds, west 35.46 feet to the northerly line of an existing driveway for out parcel 2, and north 60 degrees, 44 minutes, 57 seconds, west 29.57 feet. Shown on the site plan below as green. 4, Section 64-1433, subsections F1. To reduce the 25-foot setback for parking adjacent to residentially used property to 10 feet along the south property line. Staff notes that this zoning reference is taken from the C1 Community Business District requirements. There currently is not a similar requirement for the H District, but this will be included in the conditions of zoning. Shown on the site plan below as green. 5, Section 64-64-1145, subsection 6C, to allow on-site parking located to the front of a building or between a building and the public right-of-way, being Hopewell Road. Section 6, Section 64-1141, subsection 1A, provide a minimum 10-foot wide landscape strip along all public streets. Shown on the site plan below is blue. These items listed above will be included in the recommended conditions. And then if you look at this plan here, all the colored areas really reflect what I just read in terms of buffers and landscape strips. We tried to visually show you what was being requested. Continuing on, signage. The applicant has also requested to permit signage in keeping with the historical designation of the store building. These include projecting signage and wall sign logos, as seen in the photographs within the letter of intent dated September 4, 2012. Before installation of any signage, the owner must first obtain a certificate of appropriateness under Article 18 of the Milton zoning ordinance. A condition of zoning will be included to reflect this request. And then here's a picture showing the type of historic signing that they would like, and you can see a logo along the side of the building, historic logo, as well as the sign in the front over the porch. Parking requirements. The site plan submitted indicates a total of 5 parking spaces, of which 1 is handicapped accessible, located in front of the building. The existing structure proposed for retail use is 1,179 square feet. Pursuant to Section 64-1410 calculations, 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet are required. Based on this calculation, a total of 5 spaces is required. Traffic study. A traffic study has been provided by the applicant. The traffic count was conducted on December 17, 2012. Based on this count, the maximum number of cars that stacked on Thompson Road was 6 cars. This is an acceptable number of cars to meet the 300-foot or 95% queue distance as required by Public Works. In addition, the revised site plan indicates a right-in, right-out only on Hopewell Road. The entrance driveway was widened for full access on Thompson Road. Environmental site analysis. The environmental site analysis report is sufficient and satisfies the requirement of Section 64-2126. A field survey of the site was conducted by staff to verify areas addressed in the ESA report. The proposed site does not contain wetlands, floodplains, streams, steep slopes, or sensitive plant and animal species. As mentioned above, the building was designated historic on August 20th, 2012. Staff also notes that in the past, the building has operated as a general store with gas pumps. According to the applicant, the tanks were removed prior to the purchase of the property. Public involvement. The DRB meeting was held on October 1st, 2012. The DRB expressed concern for parking in front of the building. They wanted the site distance checked. They supported signage of a historic nature, and there was unanimous support for making the building look historic. CZIM meeting was held on September 26, 2012. There were 5 members of the community in attendance. All the community members lived close to the property and had concerns regarding traffic, more intensive commercial use of the property over time, and commercial spot zoning. Staff has not received any correspondence regarding this development. Public participation meeting. The applicant hosted the
Mute your
meeting.
phone, okay?
The applicant hosted the meeting at their offices on Wynwood Parkway on October 25, 2012. There was 1 citizen in attendance. He expressed the following concerns. Traffic control in the area due to the existing configuration of the intersection and the 45-mile-per-hour speed limit. The drivers currently drive across the property to cut the corner, and also concerned over the use of the property and impact on the area. In terms of standards of review, it has been determined that the proposed general store will be suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent and nearby property. The site fronts on 2 roads to the north and the east. To the south, a single-family residence is located on the same parcel. The residentially used property to the west is located approximately 300 feet from the subject property with a 50-foot undisturbed buffer adjacent to it. The proposal will not adversely affect existing use or usability of the adjacent properties as described above, if approved with the recommended conditions. The subject site may not have a reasonable use as currently zoned AG1 agricultural based on the small size of the building and its location at the intersection of two streets. Based on the traffic counts provided by the applicant and review by the Public Works Department, staff does not anticipate a significant impact on existing streets, transportation facilities, utilities, or schools as proposed if the required site improvements listed in the recommended conditions are made to the site. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the following comprehensive plan policy if developed with the recommended conditions. The policy is, we will expand the identification, documentation, and protection of historic, cultural, and archaeological resources in the city and, when possible, encourage access by the public. Continuing on the standards of review. The proposed H District structure will be utilized as a country store, and that type of use is not consistent with agricultural, equestrian, and estate residential. But the purpose of the H Historic District is intended to allow for a historic structure to be used, protected, renovated, and preserved on its historic value to the community. It may allow a specific previous use to continue in a structure where that use would be considered nonconforming as defined in the current City of Milton zoning ordinance. This designation will help preserve the rich traditions of history and culture evident in Milton's original settlement. Therefore, staff supports the approval of this request to rezone from AG1 agricultural to the H Historic District. The proposed use will not be environmentally adverse to the natural resources, environment, and citizens of the city due to the required development regulations. Recommended conditions. If the mayor and city council choose to approve the petition, the specific conditions are: if this petition is approved by the mayor and city council, it should be H Historic District, subject to the owner's agreement to the following enumerated conditions. Where these conditions conflict with the stipulations and offerings contained in the letter of intent, these conditions shall supersede unless specifically stipulated by the mayor and city council. 1, to the owner's agreement to restrict the use of the subject property as follows: country store and associated accessory uses on a .5240 acre, including the existing 1,179 square foot structure, and allowing only those uses that are specific to the previous historic use. Catering, carryout, and delivery. Delicatessen, retail store or shop selling groceries, hardware, seed and feed, sundry items, homemade food, beverages, etc. Also permitted are seasonal items such as pumpkins, hay bales, pine straw, wreaths, and Christmas trees, so long as they are sold and displayed within the building or on the covered porch. The following uses shall be excluded: garage, automobile repair or automotive specialty shop, gas station, landscaping, business or garden center, financial establishment, drive-through, commercial amusements, liquor sales and package stores, motels, hotels, adult-oriented entertainment, businesses including adult bookstores, adult entertainment or adult establishments as defined in Article 3.3.3, check cashing stores, coin-operated laundries, video arcades, pool halls, nail salons, beauty salons, barber shops, flea markets, secondhand surplus retail shops, roadside vending, roadside produce stands or seasonal business, precious metal sales, and billboards. To the owner's agreement to abide by the following: to the revised site plan received by the Community Development Department on January 9, 2013. Said site plan is site-specific and must meet or exceed the requirements of the zoning ordinance, all other applicable city ordinances, and these conditions prior to the approval of a land disturbance permit or certificate of occupancy. Unless otherwise noted herein, compliance with all conditions shall be in place prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Recommended conditions continued. Number 3, to the owner's agreement to the following site development considerations. A, provide a 10-foot landscape strip along Thompson Road and a minimum 40-foot buffer at the easterly end to a 36 buffer on the westerly end along the south line of the property parallel to Thompson Road, running from the corner of an existing driveway north 80 degrees, 44 minutes, 27 seconds, west 190.43 feet to the westerly property line. B, provide a 10-foot landscape strip along the following property lines as described as north 68 degrees, 10 minutes, 12 seconds, west 89.69 feet, and north 21 degrees, 34 minutes, 48 seconds, west 35.46 feet to the northerly line of an existing driveway for out parcel 2 and north 60 degrees, 44 minutes, 57 seconds, 29.57 feet. C, provide a 10-foot setback for parking adjacent to residential use property along the south property line. D, to allow on-site parking located to the front of a building or between a building and the public right-of-way, being Hopewell Road. Provide a 10-foot landscape strip along the frontages of Hopewell Road and Thompson Road. F, to allow additional signage depicted in Exhibit A, projecting sign on the front porch with store name and wall signs on left and right sides of the buildings with vintage logos using colors associated with logos, e.g. Coca-Cola logo sign. G, all improvements to the site, structure, and sign shall be reviewed and granted a certificate of appropriateness by the City of Milton Historic Preservation Commission. H, the proposed porch on the south side of the building as depicted in the revised site plan dated January 9, 2013, shall not be constructed. 4, to the owner's agreement to abide by the following requirements, dedication, and improvements. A, access to the site shall be subject to the approval of City of Milton Department of Public Works prior to the issuance of a business license, land disturbance permit, subdivision plat, or certificate of occupancy, whichever comes first. Entrances shall conform to Chapter 48 streets, sidewalks, and other public places of the City of Milton Code of Ordinances, or be reconstructed to meet such criteria as required by the Department of Public Works. At a minimum, the following shall apply. 1, driveway shall provide a minimum uninterrupted ingress-egress distance of 25 feet measured from the right-of-way line to the nearest edge of drive or parking space. 2, driveway's site distance shall be certified by a professional engineer. 3, if at any such time in the future the Director of Public Works determines that the traffic generated by the site exceeds the design criteria, he/she may require the owner to conduct a traffic study to determine if the development warrants any additional improvements at no cost to the city. If improvements are determined to be warranted, owner shall install those at no cost to the city, and that the site distance for the 45-mile speed limit shall be satisfied. B, dedicate at no cost to the City of Milton prior to the approval of a business license, land disturbance permit, subdivision plat, or certificate of occupancy, whichever comes first, sufficient land as necessary to provide the following rights-of-way. 1, provide at least 10.5 feet of right-of-way from the back of curb of all abutting road improvements and along the entire property frontage. 2, provide right-of-way miter at intersection of Hopewell Road and Thompson Road. Conclusions. Although the proposed rezoning is inconsistent with the future land use plan's recommendation of agricultural, equestrian, and estate residential, it is staff's opinion that by rezoning it to H District, it is consistent with the intent of the H Historic District to preserve the rich traditions of history and culture in Milton. In addition, staff has included a set of recommended conditions that will ensure that the proposed general store will not have a negative impact on the surrounding community. Therefore, staff recommends approval conditional of RZ 12-15 to rezone from AG1 agricultural to H Historic District. That is my presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Before we go further in the public hearing, is there any questions right now for staff from council? Bill?
I have some. Kathy, could you go over the site plan, the colored up site plan?
Oh, yes.
One of the issues that came up was parking and the number of parking spaces. And they are shown on the south side of the property. Is that a handicap space up in front of the front porch?
Yeah, I'm looking for. Yeah, but you want to go. You're going to have to get the big site plan out, so I can't read this one. Yeah, just, yeah.
Reminds me of DirecTV. Reminds me of DirecTV. Through all the channels.
Yeah, did you want the colored?
The colored one?
The colored one, so you want to go back to this one. Okay. And your question is in terms of where the location of the handicapped
Right,
parking
is that
spaces?
handicapped in front of the porch?
Yeah, it looks to me like it's in the front, and
Okay.
that's,
One of the questions that came up during the planning commission was the number of parking spaces that were provided here. And the thought was that there was no room for any other parking, particularly employee parking. The brown colored area there, which I believe is the septic reserve field, is that an area possibly for parking?
I would certainly like the applicant to weigh in on this, but to us, it certainly looks like it's possible. We're looking at essentially a 10-foot landscape or buffer strip around most of the parcel, with the exception of that brownish orange area. And we could easily just extend, rather than having the at all be comprised of a buffer, we could indeed subtract out the buffer area and just put in two landscape strips along the north boundary line and along the south boundary line.
Right, that'd make more sense.
And then the remainder in the middle could be used for additional, it would be about 30 feet, I would think,
Right.
and that could be used for additional parking spaces.
Good point. That's all I have right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait.
Go ahead, Lance.
The exhibit that it's in the applicants that was submitted, I guess on September 4th, is that no longer valid? Because that showed actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parking spaces. I guess that was in the package here.
And the applicant did revise that site plan to widen the driveways. And I think that they would probably be able to speak more in terms of what happened to that last parking space. But I think the configuration of the driveways impacted that.
Okay. Also, as far as on the septic area, it's always been my experience, you don't pave or put anything over top of the septic drain field. So use of that area, plus even if you drive on it, it compacts the soil, could cause the septic drain field to fail as well. So I don't know about actually using that area. The parking would be
That's a reserve.
is that just a reserve area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think perhaps the applicant could
Okay.
probably better speak to
That's
that
fine.
as well.
I'll wait.
You got another one, Bill?
Received several comments, and I've heard a lot of discussion on it too, is the traffic situation on Thompson as it intersects with Hopewell. And I understand the concern. I would hope, and I'd propose, that in the near term, hopefully we can, as a city, be addressing a roundabout at that intersection just to correct the offset in the Thompson Road as it intersects with Hopewell Road. I think obviously that's going to lower the speed limit and allow a lot easier ingress, egress to that establishment, Hopewell Road. And as Bell Memorial develops, I think we'll probably see some more traffic there, but I think having a roundabout there is going to improve the safety of those people using Bell Memorial in the future too. So I'd recommend to our city manager and council that we look at putting a roundabout in there in the future.
Anybody else? Matt, did you have something?
No, wait.
Yeah, I want to wait till after I hear presentations.
Okay, all right. If that's all the questions right now, I'll open up the floor for those that are speaking in favor of this application.
My
first speaker is Ms. Deborah C. Anthony.
While I see the clock is ticking, so I'm Deborah Anthony, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the applicant. My address is 5780 Windward Parkway, Suite 300, Alpharetta, Georgia 3005. And we're very happy to be here tonight. This is, in a way, an historic moment for us, so we are very happy to present this to you tonight. What we are trying to do is to preserve this property as it is in keeping with its historic designation to be a country store. I think similar to what you see when you drive around in the North Georgia mountains. It's a little bit of everything and not a lot of anything. So what we're trying to do is to preserve the character of the building, and so at the same time, what we would like to do in keeping with the conditions is to reduce the impact on the surrounding areas through the use of buffers, landscaping, and screening, to comply with the Northwest Fulton overlay, and in fact this is probably a model for the Northwest Fulton overlay, and also to incorporate signage that's in keeping with the store. And I think on the flip side we have an old picture of signage on the store, and it's just part of the nostalgia of the store that we're trying to preserve. We have actually been spending quite a bit of time with Public Works, and Mr. Chatham can go into more detail about that, but we want to be aware of what's already there as far as the road, and to try to work with it as best that we can. And the use of the property is not so large that in itself that it creates as big an impact as say even the park does, but by the same token we would like to do everything that we could to make the site safe. We would like to reserve the majority of our comments in order to address public comment, so I will for the moment step aside and let them speak.
Okay. Do we have anyone else at this point wants to speak in support?
Oh, we do. We have Mr. Michael Martin.
Yes, hello. I'm Michael Martin, and I live at 1820 High Grove Club Drive in the Wood Valley subdivision. I'm a little surprised about the situation that presents itself here today. And there's something I don't understand, and I'd like to ask one question before proceeding. Is this half of the property that's being considered and the other half of the property is not? Because I was under the understanding that the house next to the building being considered was part of the property, and more of that long brown stretch was as well.
We can, I'd be glad for staff to answer that question.
The answer is that half of the property is being considered for rezoning. The other half, where the residential home is not being considered. That is being left alone.
Okay, thank you very much for explaining that. Well, personally, I think that's a mistake. I think if this is going to be a historic property, I think the other house should be removed, and I think the whole property should be used that way, and it would create a much greater footprint and allow for more facility with parking and more egress facility as well. I'm concerned because I have a 17-year-old daughter who drives, and going through that intersection is one of the most difficult things I do on a daily basis. People come up the road from Birmingham at 55, 60 miles an hour sometimes, and you have 2 or 3 seconds to get across that intersection safely, and that isn't enough time for an experienced driver, much less an unexperienced teenager, of which there are many in Milton, and especially in that area. So that is my chief concern. I support the development of the country store, so that's why I'm speaking on the support side. But I think more study needs to be gone into the intersection. Councilman Luss made a comment about a roundabout. I can see that being a worthy improvement. I'm not sure that I would choose a roundabout. I think I would choose an intersection with a light there. But either of those things would be an improvement. But I don't think this should go forward until the intersection issue is clarified further so that everybody has a feeling of safety with this particular project. And I would urge the council to hold this in abeyance and go back and study what is actually going to happen with that intersection before they improve the continuance of this project. Also, I believe there was something in the beginning that said that the council had the power to change some of the conditions. And so I think you have more power than you think you have in this particular case. I think you can really move things around a little bit, increase the property footprint for this project, make sure the site density. We have a fire station just down the road there, and that should be considered, the ingress and egress of the fire station and emergencies. So I want to say that I support the project, but I think each of you has to take the intersection into account with this project and the whole impact. And the additional property that I do not understand why they're not including that in the thing if they really want a nice project, and I think that should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are there any others in support?
That's all we have in support.
Okay, we'll
I'm not sure that was in support.
open up to any comments in opposition.
We have one name individual that would like to be read into the record, Joan Borzelli, 540 Kings County Court, Milton, Georgia, in opposition, but she does not wish to speak, and we do not have any other speakers in opposition.
Okay. If that's all the public comment, then I'll close the hearing and
Mayor, before you do that, the applicant still has time remaining.
yeah, I'm sorry, I do know they have time if they want any rebuttal or comments, and then we'll also, I'm sure, have the applicant come up and answer any questions.
We have 4.5 minutes.
You've got 4.5 minutes if you want to use them. If not, we'll certainly be asking you questions. Okay. Yeah, we'll close the public hearing and, or, go ahead, Mr. Chatham.
My name's David Chatham. I live at 1865 Bethany Way, and I represent the applicant. One comment I do want to make about the line of sight on Hopewell. We have revised the site plan, which I think we have passed out to you tonight, where we have reversed the parking and moved the curb cut to the very extreme south end of our property line to create a little more distance on the line of sight. But even with that, we're a little short, about 25 feet short of the perfect regulations that are required. Otherwise, we meet the line of sight going the other directions. I just want to mention that. We have reversed that since, I think, the plan that was shown on the screen. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll close the public hearing and open up to for any questions or comments from council or any motions moving forward.
I do have one question of staff. Okay, one of your conditions said food preparation is prohibited. Now, I thought preparation of food is kind of a historic thing that happens and has been happening for many years. So why is the preparation of food prohibited on the site? I guess I don't understand exactly what that means and why it is prohibited. I mean, clearly I can understand why automotive repair and specialty and all of that is prohibited, but preparing food is kind of something that's been happening for a long time.
Right, right. And I guess it comes down to the degree of preparing the food in the sense that, you know, we did not want it to get into a restaurant-type use. But, you know, of course, if you had a sandwich counter or something like that, you know, I guess it's all a degree, but it was something we discussed with the Planning Commission as well, and they really felt that they really wanted to stay away from that and keep more the general store and have prepared sandwiches that could be brought in to be sold, for instance, but not do it there on the site.
Well, then I've got a question for the applicant then?
What we just read up here still had delicatessen in it.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought that was,
So we actually didn't say anything about it, but yes, we would like to include that.
I mean, historically, were sandwiches made and prepared and served at that store? Because, I mean, I think the whole purpose of this ordinance was to make sure we kept the uses similar to what they were at the time the property was built. So I want to make sure that that's what we're doing here, and if sandwiches used to be prepared there and served, then that would fit in. If they didn't, then it wouldn't. Sure.
This was my Uncle Bill and Aunt Margaret Hardeman's store, and they did have fresh meats and fresh cheeses and bread, and they did make sandwiches on the site. He'd also sometimes have like sausage and biscuits, you know, things like that. It was a general country store. He had a little bit of everything. So, but I've eaten there myself. So as a little boy, so that was done. Food prep was done on site, and I think we have to probably, according to your ordinance, include delicatessen because that's the way you're able to do food prep. And I think we were on the impression that you did include it in the reading tonight, even though it was not read that way previously, unless I misunderstood. That's why we didn't say anything about it earlier.
yeah, I
So
think it,
you might want to clarify that for us.
I would agree if it's a country store, typically you'd probably have somebody in the back making sandwiches or even homemade meatloaf and that kind of stuff too. But obviously I know you have to, there's modern health department rules and all that you have to abide by. But I believe it did include delicatessen.
Yes, it does include it. It says catering, carry-out delivery, delicatessen,
Okay.
homemade food.
Does that clarify that for you, Councilman?
So that's okay, just, so where it says food preparation, I mean, that just to me, it looks like we almost have a conflict within what we say we're applying for and what we say is not allowed. Because we're saying that, so is food preparation allowed, or because following uses shall be excluded? Food preparation is the first one.
Yeah, the planning commission said that, but I'm looking at our recommended conditions. It says the following uses shall be excluded: garage, automobile repair, specialty shop, gas station.
Okay, our copy says food preparation, but yours does not say food preparation.
All right, why don't you explain the difference, Robin, if you would, please?
So, staff had our recommendation, which originally did include those uses of delicatessen, food preparation, based on the letter of intent by the applicant. We went to the Planning Commission, and we stated in the front of the report what the Planning Commission, what they voted on. And they voted, part of their conditions were, if you go to page 2, uses be the same as the prior use, but does not include delicatessen, catering, carry-out, and no food preparation on premises. So I apologize for the confusion, but staff would actually prefer it to be more consistent with the historic use, but we reflected the conditions in the staff report to show what the Planning Commission had recommended. So that's the difference. So it's up to you to decide which, what you would
Whether
prefer.
or not the food preparation's in or out.
Right, and I think they kind of struggled with it too. I mean, they were discussing what's carry out. I mean, you carry everything out of a store, so anyway.
Yeah, one of the discussions on the planning commission as well, I think they were worried about the sewage capacity primarily with food prep on that property, and so a continuous stream of food prep was the issue. So again, like what Kathy was saying, I think the degree was the question. But we didn't really specify what that degree was. So good question on that end. But
To clarify that though, wouldn't that be a health department issue, wouldn't it? As far as the actual food and the menu.
Well, yeah,
as
you'd
far
have
as
to have,
sewage and all that, I
you'd
don't
have to
know
have the
that-
grease trap and all that stuff would be inspected by the health department, of course.
Right, I
yes.
mean, I think they would make a call on that versus us trying to
Yeah.
decide what
Yeah.
can and can't be.
That's right, but
prepared.
there was a discussion, and, at the planning commission about food preparation. Should that be in or out, and what type of, does carry out, delicatessen, and all of those relate to that, and what to do with that, so.
Let me be clear on this then. Are you recommending to go along with the planning commission's recommendations or not?
Who asked me?
Robin, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was talking to the city attorney.
If
Repeat
you
the
would
question.
clarify this. Are you recommending as one of your recommendations to go along with the planning commission's recommendations to exclude carry-out, delicatessen, and,
I believe originally we wanted to be consistent with the applicant's request, which
Right.
was in the presentation, and that's why it was
Could you,
inconsistent.
do you mind just pulling that slide again from the presentation on what was recommended as allowed versus what's not? That way we'll
Oh, it's in
see
the
it.
beginning.
Yeah. It's,
You mean what the planning commission wanted, or?
no,
Well, you had two,
what-
you had two slides that said what it could be and couldn't be.
Right.
it's,
And I think those are, and Kathy ran through those relatively quickly.
it's under recommended conditions, after the standards are
These
reviewed.
were what were recommended, yeah.
What?
Here we go.
All right, right here we are, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So you'll see in there that we recommend catering, carry-out, delivery, delicatessen.
So that is different than what we have on
Right,
our
this
stuff,
was-
because what we
this
have
was
is the
updated.
planning commission stuff.
Yeah, this was updated.
Okay.
Yes, right, we updated it, so we took out the food preparation, but there is a little inconsistency in here, but I think, again, they wanted to stay away from the restaurant, so they felt the food preparation was moving you, again, that's that degree here, it was moving you toward, a full-fledged restaurant, so they were,
But I would, reading this, it, to me, would carry out the intent of what I believe we would all think a country store
Yeah.
would be able to do or have. Would you not, would you agree?
I would, yes, sir.
The, one question I had on it earlier was Christmas trees. Allowed to have Christmas trees, but then it stipulated that it has to be under the porch or inside, which, in my picture of a country store or a little corner market, you're gonna have Christmas trees outside if you were to sell Christmas trees. So is that something that, there's a reason for that? Obviously, I can understand you want to restrict having things stored outside, but is that something that staff would go along with, it would make an exception on a seasonal type sale item? I guess put that in the grass areas or the septic, septic areas or the.
Yeah, I
secondary,
think
that
on a case by case, we could certainly look at it. The idea is you don't want to spill over all over the whole site. The site is tight as it is, so that's something through a permitting process that we could look through on a seasonal basis.
We do have we do have administrative use permit for seasonal sales, so if he
Yeah.
wanted to sell some trees, he can come in and it's administrative permit, so just for a limited time during holiday seasons.
Okay.
that's an allowable use in AG1.
Correct,
Right.
yes.
Correct.
Karen?
There's a couple of questions. Number one, I assume most of the parking's gonna be impervious, it's not gonna be, is it gonna be paved or non-paved, or what's the parking gonna be?
Paved, it's on there.
It's all paved, it's there? Are they gonna be paving any additional other than the roads? Because I know we're trying to get away from paving everywhere.
There's already enough
Paving there?
paving there, yeah, to accomplish the parking we're showing on your site plan.
Okay. And the buffers, are we making them replant stuff in the landscape strips, or is it, what you don't want is something that looks real formal in a country store landscape strip. So is it gonna be natural buffers, or is there something that has to be put back in there?
You're speaking of the western portion of the buffer,
Yes.
or just the landscape strips?
Well, both the landscape strips and the buffer. What you don't want is it to be something that looks real structured, because this is a
I
that
mean,
would be
the
in
arborist
keeping.
can work with them. There's certain species and types of plantings that are required, but he can make it so it's not so
So
structured.
something that would have been there 100 years ago, not something that's Leland cypress lining the
No.
the
Exactly.
size.
And the
No.
landscaping plan would be part of the review by the HPC in
Okay.
order for them to get their certificate of appropriateness. So again, we would go back to a historic type of setting in terms of the landscaping.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, I got a.
Matt?
Yeah, Joe?
Joe? Yeah, go ahead, Joe. And you can go next.
On page 20, in the owner's agreement, there was a stipulation on item H under item, or it's section 8 or question 3, item H, whatever we want to call it. The proposed porch on the south side of the building as depicted on the revised site plan dated January 9th shall not be constructed. Was that a requirement of ours, or was that something that the applicant reviewed and decided they didn't need? I'm just trying to understand, was that a restriction that we placed that the applicant agreed to? Because in my mind, porches, those outside porches sort of make the site look more like a country store. So I'm just wondering.
Is it porch or a handicap ramp?
No, it's a porch. Basically,
On the south side.
I can address that issue. This structure had been designated as a historic structure earlier or last year, and a part of designating a historic structure, you cannot add to it. And so that porch does not exist right now as well as at the time that it was designated. And we asked the applicant to take it off, and they didn't take it off, so we just went ahead and put a condition to make it clear that no addition can be put onto the building based on the historic structure status of the building.
Okay.
Okay, Matt?
Already got a couple questions. And historically, in our city's past, this thing's been paved for a long, long time. And I'm just curious, why when we did the initial land use plan, we designated it as AG1 to begin with. I wasn't here during that discussion. I wasn't sure if it was something that was just missed or if that was, a discussion that happened. I just don't know the background on that, if anybody had any comments on that. It's paved now. It was always paved. Why did we designate it as AG1 to begin with? I'm just kind of curious. Did we ever discuss it? You were Kathy, so I'm sure you did.
I'm going to let Robin, she's got the institutional memory.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, and maybe even I've got a little bit of this institutional memory, is that at the time that the comp plan was done, this age zoning designation didn't even exist as
Right,
an option.
right. So it was forced into that from that standpoint. Okay. What is our, as a city, what is our liability? And here's why I ask this. I drive down that road all the time, and that Thompson Road intersection is awful, and it needs to be fixed. And there's a lot of things I look at from a liability standpoint, and I'm just wondering, what is, as a city standpoint, if there is an accident on Thompson Road, and it's very possible that there can be because of the current speed limit requirements, because of the hill as you're coming south on Hopewell. People can't see anybody coming through, people trying to turn right on Thompson Road. It is a crazy, crazy intersection. And, I don't know from a timing perspective that doing this now may be the right thing to do. Does that make sense from a safety perspective? And I'm curious, as a city liability, if we do this, what is our liability if there's an accident on that? If we push something through, and when the speed limit conditions aren't necessarily safe for 17-year-olds, for example.
If I may, Sarah is here from the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department has reviewed this plan to make sure it's consistent with all of the requirements for traffic and speed and access and whatnot. So if you'd like, I can have Sarah address that.
I think it's important.
So one of the first things we do is look back to the comprehensive transportation plan that was done in December 2009 is when it was completed. And this particular intersection actually wasn't identified as an improvement in the CTP. But since that time, we're currently working through a scoping for the Bell Park development. And as part of that, in the scope, we've included the evaluation of the Hopewell-Thompson intersections. So that's definitely going to be looked at in the very near future. It wasn't, like I said, originally identified in the CTP. So that's where we are with that intersection.
So time frame wise, and maybe Mr. Chatham, you can talk about this as well. If you were to have approval on this, at one point will it be operational compared to when we have a functioning traffic intersection? I don't know the answer to that. What do you think? Go ahead.
Let me mention now the asphalt, if you've noticed, just sort of goes out into the street. We're actually going to be improving the corner by putting in curb and gutter and putting in curb cuts, if you will, with right-in, right-outs. So we should actually improve the safety of the intersection. And you've only got 5 parking spaces, so you're not talking about, it's only 1,100 feet. I mean, it's not a big building, so you're not going to have a lot of people in there more than likely. So I think we actually, just by doing those improvements on the corner with the curb and gutter and the curb cuts, actually will help it even now. I wouldn't want to be obligated to wait until the city improves the intersection. I've waited for 6 years to even get to tonight, so I'd like to go forward if I could.
Okay. I'd just like to, if everybody else has had a chance to talk, I'm concerned about the intersection, and we've heard that from some comments and all. I don't know scientific-wise or engineering-wise if this is the case, but I could almost see having something living and breathing there, some activity, would almost slow traffic down a little bit. They're coming flying over there. If they know there's a store there and they see it and all that, I think temporarily or in the short term, the only thing we can do is maybe have our police department patrol that area more consistently to get people in the habit of slowing down in that intersection. And then again, long term, hopefully we can do something with it. But, I'd just like to say as a citizen and someone who's lived here, I guess I'm a newcomer, but lived in the area about 24 years or so. When I first moved into what is now Milton, I enjoyed, there was a few country stores, and I'll never forget, I'd go up and introduce myself, and they'd say, oh yeah, you bought the old so-and-so's property, and I need a new lawnmower, and they said, okay, we'll order you one. And a week later, my wife says, they dropped off a lawnmower and just said, come pay them when you get a chance. Or if you needed something, or, I can see this as, folks from the park or people that live around or people going by there, stopping in and picking up a jug of milk or sandwich or whatever. Long term, I think that could help traffic because they don't have to go further in Milton. So, and also, I think there's been concern about spot zoning and commercial zoning. I think if we limit it to this use and with this designation, that shouldn't be a problem. And, Milton wants to be, rural and a equestrian feel and old time. And I think there's nothing better than a country store with friendly people. So I'm in favor of this application. My only concern is traffic. And if we can, long-term address it, short-term possibly, Chris, if you can have our police department take a look at it. And again, if this were to pass, either way, we've heard the concerns. I think we need to have a little more traffic calming out there physically. So with that, I'll just, unless anybody's got specific questions.
I just want to ask
open up
the city attorney one thing. I just want to make sure that everyone does understand that because this is a specific H zoning and it's not a commercial zoning, it will not set a precedence for any of the other properties around there unless they too qualified for the H zoning.
That is correct. They would have to independently meet our historic requirements, and those will set no precedent otherwise.
Okay.
And maybe go further to that point, once this zoning classification is granted, there's no possibility of reversing it to another zoning classification.
Yeah.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Well, I don't know that that's entirely accurate. I think that a future council would retain their legislative discretion to zone it in the future. So I think that's.
That could be the case anywhere, though.
There's nothing special about the age zoning that makes that. That would be the case with any zoning. Nothing peculiar about this one.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I just say one thing for the record, since we're kind of in the middle of a zoning case? I just want to clarify that we've had some strong comments tonight made onto the safety aspect of this intersection and whether or not it's a safe place or whether or not any liability attaches to the city as a product of making some of those comments. I just want to say and have on the record that, yes, we can think some of those things, and it's the council's job to evaluate some of those things, but we haven't looked at any independent traffic data in making those conclusions tonight. So I just want to make sure that those aren't perceived as being comments based upon actual traffic study and data by traffic engineers. And it's great to think those things. I probably think them too. I just don't want the record tonight to be perfected with us taking ownership of a dangerous intersection that we may or may not be in the process of studying.
And are you saying that we have not done a traffic study on this?
Oh, no, I'm saying that it has been studied, but as it was studied in the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, the CTP, it didn't rise to the level of priority that we have distributed our resources to at this point. So we've figured out what the priorities have been, and that's where we've thrown our resources, and this one just didn't rise to that level. Now, I give it to you all day long. It's an offset intersection, and I have to travel through it when I go to Bell Memorial Park, and it's not fun. I just don't want us to inadvertently attach a level of responsibility or acceptance to an intersection with problems if we haven't really evaluated independent data to make those conclusions. I just want that to be a part of the record if this were to ever be challenged.
Do we evaluate any data of what would happen if there was, obviously there's only 5 parking spaces, so it probably wouldn't be too much, but my thought is, again, just the speed at which someone tries to pull out of that country store as people are flying up by there is hard enough just to turn right on Thompson. And, I look at it, I guess this will be my last comments, I think it's a great opportunity to have a country store there. I really do. I think that it's not going to be a commercial aspect. How are you going to make money on it? I don't know. Honestly, I've looked at it every way there is. If we do a roundabout there, it would be perfect. If we do a roundabout near his property, I think he's going to get a higher profit from it if the city has to buy it because of the situation we put on it. So where we put that roundabout is going to be important as well. And we haven't even discussed that. And so I just think we're putting the cart before the horse here. I think this is going to pass tonight. I may not vote for this just because we're being a little bit too premature in my mind. But, and it's no against the applicant because I appreciate what he's trying to do. But I think from a priority perspective, I have a hard time getting around to what I perceive to be safety. And I just don't know that I can do that based on what I know about that intersection and what it feels like to go through it. That's what it is.
Bill?
I'd like to address that, and as an engineer, I think what's shown on this site plan is an improvement to this intersection by establishing curb and gutter around the Hopewell side and the Thompson Road side by showing a right in and a right out onto Hopewell Road. That's tremendously better, more safe than what the situation is at this point in time. It's not perfect. I think that whole intersection needs to be addressed, and I would hope down the road that near term we can start studying that. But these curbs and gutters are going to prohibit cut-through traffic going across the front of the building and making left-hand turns out onto Hopewell Road. So in my professional opinion, I think this is a vast improvement to this intersection.
Okay. Lance?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Councilman Lusk had to say there. And also I believe with, Bell Park development, and you said that this intersection will be looked at as part of the Bell Park improvements. That with the development of Bell Park and the property right along Hopewell Road, I would believe this store will have a lot of pedestrian traffic coming to it as well from the park.
There are no sidewalks.
All I'm saying is that they would have, and again, that can be looked at as far as the park development. But to have, it will be more traffic other than just car traffic coming to it. I believe this was a complementary use to go along with the park. And as far as the intersection, I mean, there's a lot to look at in terms of, but the offset is to the north. So I believe any intersection improvements would have to be push it northward, not to the south, which would have less impact on this property from my engineering perspective, just taking a look at it. So.
Okay. Joe, do you have any final comments or questions?
Well, yeah, no, the traffic is a concern, but, we've got experience in Milton where the traffic issues, have not been as drastic as what we initially suspected based on studies and things like that. I'm not trying to, minimize the concern, but just as an example, the gas station that went in at the corner of Bethany Bend and Highway 9, we had a lot of concerns about the traffic there that it was going to cause. Certainly the oblique angle that that intersection has caused some additional problems. And what we've really seen since that station has gone in is that the traffic has not been impacted in a dramatic way. So, and, I take those things very seriously, but I also know that, to just second what Bill and Lance had to say, that those things have a way of sorting themselves out, and I think that in this particular case, it's actually an improvement.
Okay, thanks. The only thing I would add is I do think with the revised site plan versus the existing conditions right now, it would be, in my opinion, safer, because people can't just cut through it any way. They're pulled further south. The other thing, and to Chris's point, we need to make sure that, we need to separate the two issues. If this is approved, it doesn't necessarily mean it's making this intersection a more unsafe intersection. And all of our intersections, obviously, can be unsafe. Anytime there's two cars going, they could be unsafe. And as Chris said, this one, just by statistics, has not ranked up high. We need to keep looking at it, and things will change, and we need to take that as a priority. But we need to be careful that we're not, saying that if this zoning passes, that we, made an intersection more unsafe. Again, my personal opinion is, once you have something here, I think people will look around and possibly go a little slower as they see some activity or whatever. But that's just a personal opinion. So.
I do have another question. One last one. Is there liability to the applicant if there's an accident on that? If he does the intersection improvements and they don't work? I was just curious. I don't know the answer to that.
Is there liability to the applicant?
Yeah.
Again, you're asking questions that contain a million variables.
Sure.
Which would depend upon the nature of the accident, what caused it, causation, assuming that the intersection was done improperly. And you're probably getting to the point that really any sort of an answer, all I can tell you for purposes of tonight's meeting is that if you want to exercise your legislative discretion and approve this zoning, you don't need to be worried about potential liability to the city of Milton in doing so. Gotcha. I can say that comfortably.
All right, anything else, or does anyone want to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Bill?
I'll move to approve RZ 12-15, 15260 Hopewell Road by Reunion Park LLC to rezone from AG1 agricultural to H district for the existing building to be utilized as a country store on .524 acres. Agenda item number 13-032.
I'll second it, and I'm assuming this is with the conditions as recommended by staff.
Yes.
Madam Councilmember, yes, I believe the discussion we've had, the one that was recommended by staff at this point would allow for delicatessen to occur. I want to bring one other point to you, because if we're going to do this and if it has the potential of passing, we want to make sure it's right. There is one thing in the staff section that I want to point out to you that is in number F, or letter F in number 3, which says, shall be in compliance with the City of Milton sign ordinance, Chapter 64 of the city ordinance for all future signage. To bring that to your attention, because that would prohibit the types of signage you have seen on the building tonight presented to you. The Coca-Cola sign on the side of the building, or the historic sign. It is staff's recommendation, I guess, if we're going to make a recommendation, or at least staff's request that you consider potentially striking that if in fact you want that type of signage to be reflective of what we traditionally believe to be an old country store, meaning the wall signage.
Right. I thought they referenced the signage in one of the other recommendations to section, the new historic.
If you strike 3F, it'll be.
We'll strike.
I'll second that strike.
You want to clarify your motion, Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Your second.
Move to approve the RZ 1215 as read, with the exception of Article 3F, which I recommend to be deleted from this motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion. City Attorney?
Just 2 points very quickly. Councilmember Longoria, since you are participating remotely and the staff record report was done by way of visual, but you did hear all of them when Ms. Fields read through them?
Ken, I apologize. You're going to have to repeat that because you didn't come through very clear.
Just wanted to confirm, since you are participating remotely, the staff recommendations as to conditions are actually visually displayed on monitors, but you did hear Ms. Fields read through them, just to confirm you actually were able to participate meaningfully, is my point.
Yeah, that was worse than the first time. I have a feeling you're asking me, since I'm not present.
Yeah. Hey,
and,
Joe.
You can't tell how I vote that I stipulate explicitly.
Joe, he's asking you to confirm that you've heard everything that was said tonight in the meeting.
Well, I would say yes, that I have heard everything that was said. Ken in particular, though, must have something over his microphone, so I can't hear him very well. But I can hear everybody else very well.
That's fine.
We'll start referring to him as mumbles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I have a motion second. Is there any other discussion?
I'd like to say just one more, again, I hope you're successful. I'm going to say no on this just from the timing of it, from that standpoint, but, I wish you luck.
Okay, there's no other, all in favor of motion and second for approval with a couple conditions. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that's 5 for approval, 1 for not approved. Okay, thank you very much. So we have no other items in unfinished business, so we'll move into new business, which we've also got one other new business item we will add, number 3.
Our first item is consideration to accept an application for the abandonment of a portion of Black Oak Road, agenda item number 13043. Ms. Sarah Leaders.
I think Sarah's growing.
I was just hoping she was going to be here.
Yeah.
All right, so this is an initial consideration of an application we received for abandonment as part of our recently revised privatization and abandonment policies. This is the first step in that process. It's really just acknowledging that we've received the application, and it's the step in the process if you'll want any comments or input going forward on any next steps. And the decision tonight is to accept it for further processing or reject the application. And acceptance in no way is approval of the application or the abandonment at this point. This application, like I said, is for a portion of Black Oak Road. Black Oak is a dead-end gravel road. It's the last intersection on Hopewell before the county line, and the existing conditions are a 60-foot right-of-way that's approximately 1,750 feet long, and the request is to abandon the last 1,000 feet of the right-of-way. the right-of-way and access to all of the existing homes would remain as part of the abandonment. There are currently 2 owners that front the piece that is requested to be abandoned, and that is Hopewell Holdings, who is in contract with a developer to sell, and the Manor Golf and Country Club, and both have provided letters of consent at this time. So with that, I'll take any questions on the process beyond this point. And
Okay, do we have any questions for Sarah on this?
No. This is just to go forward, allowing them to continue with the process.
right, and the next step is for them to provide a good bit of the more detailed information. So this is just to
This is that
have
step
them-
we implemented just to make sure that we didn't say go spend a whole bunch of money if we really don't have any interest in doing it. This is what that step is.
Sure.
Okay.
Mayor.
Okay. All right.
In the package I've got here in Exhibit B, it appears that they're showing where the existing road right-of-way will terminate. There will be a bulb cul-de-sac or something, some sort of turnaround.
right.
Okay.
Okay, if, Joe, you got anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve a consideration to accept an application for the abandonment of a portion of Black Oak Road, agenda item number 13043.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion for approval and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Okay, City Clerk will sound the next item, please.
Our next item is consideration of a resolution supporting local legislation by the Georgia House of Representatives and Senate amending and clarifying the City of Milton Charter. Agenda item number 13044, Mr. Chris Lagerblum.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this was an item that was worked on jointly between both me and Mayor Lockwood, so I'll defer to the mayor and find out if he wants to make this presentation or if you'd like me to make it. Either way works.
You can go ahead, Chris, and I'll just add to it.
Okay. What we have before us tonight is a resolution that we would deliver potentially to our local delegation tomorrow morning, asking them to make the changes that the state is required to make to our charter that was at the end of the Charter Commission that was in place, as well as other input that's received in this process. There are certain things that the Charter Commission recommended that we can handle by home rule, and we can clean some of those items up, and it doesn't require the state to act. There are 5 issues in particular that do require the state to act, and this resolution would seek to ask them to take that action. As you're aware, our local delegation is Representative Jones and Hill in the House, Senator Albers and Beach in the Senate. The 5 items, and I'll walk you through the resolution here just very quickly, and if you have any questions. The first topic deals with redistricting. As a product of the 2010 census, the districts that exist, the 6 districts that you all run from, are out of line as far as population. And there is the desire, I believe it was the desire of the Charter Commission, and I believe it's you all's desire to potentially consolidate those 6 districts into 3, where there would be 2 council members from each district on an alternating schedule for election, meaning that you wouldn't have any 2 council members up for election at the same time. The state reapportionment has gone through and drawn maps and has balanced those districts, and I think you've seen the map at some point, and this just seeks to give our consent or authorization to ask them to redistrict the city. The second thing is to clear up and strengthen or further clarify what is intended with the mayoral veto in the charter. There's been some interpretation that we did have a mayoral veto in the charter, although the majority that was required to overturn the veto was the same simple majority as it was potentially to take the action. And what that does is practically cause that veto to not exist. So because that we believe to be potentially ambiguous in the charter, to ask the General Assembly to clarify what that means. The third item that's in this resolution deals with what we have called the millage rate cap language in our charter. We've got language that has been interpreted by legislative council to potentially be ambiguous in that if there was an opinion that had to be generated from a court as to what that actually meant, would the court take the supermajority requirement that's in our charter today and say that's what it actually meant, because that is arriving at a conclusion that really is impossible. And if you're going to arrive at a place that you really can't get to, certainly the person that wrote it wasn't trying to say that when they wrote it. Now, we're not suggesting that's exactly what they'd say, but it's ambiguous enough that legislative council in our city and in Johns Creek and in Sandy Springs has issued an opinion that we should seek clarification as to what that millage rate cap language means, and that potentially it would apply to the operating budget and not necessarily to bonded debt if the city were to seek bonds in the future. That's number 3 in here. The fourth one dealt with the term limits of mayor and council. Representative Jones did some research and had the Georgia Municipal Association conduct some survey research of other municipalities, and was able to, of the more than 500 cities in the state, find only 2 that had a simple 2-term limit bracket, I guess. She was able to find only or less than 25 of the cities that were surveyed that even had any type of a term limit. So in keeping with what would be more appropriate in this area, her recommendation, and I believe this council, if you approve this resolution, would support it, would be to modify that from 2 until 3 terms. And finally, we've asked for a clarification that really cleans up what I think we've wanted to do since the very beginning, and that is to allow the responsibilities and the ability to serve as the mayor pro tem to be, for everybody on the council to be afforded the opportunity to have that, and instead of it being a 4-year appointment as it's currently written, that would be an action that we would take at the first meeting of every calendar year in January to elect a mayor pro tem from amongst the ranks of the council. And this just would further solidify that it's okay to do that every January the 1st, as opposed to having to try to do it every 4 years. With the non-concurrent terms, it was difficult to figure out how that actual process occurred. This will clarify that. Those are the 5 items that this resolution seeks to either send our support for or not. It is the opinion of the local delegation, and we're certainly like their opinions and certainly respond to their requests. They would like this council to say, yes, we could either support or we don't support you taking this action. They want your involvement when our charter changes, and that's what this document would do, is to say you're either supportive of them taking these actions or not. If in fact you're supportive and this resolution approves, I would deliver it to the Capitol tomorrow, and Representative Jones, Hill, Senators Albers, and Beach would then work together to introduce some local legislation as early as next week to start these changes in progress. I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions. I hope I've summarized it well, but I'm willing to summarize it further if it needs to be.
No, I think you did a good job, Chris. I know we've all talked, but is there any questions for Chris or me on the changes? Okay. Well, I'll just open up for a motion then.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consideration of resolutions supporting local legislation by the Georgia House of Representatives and Senate, amending and clarifying the City of Milton Charter, agenda item 13-044.
Second the motion.
Okay. Got a motion for approval from Councilmember Large, second from Councilmember Lusk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Mayor, before you move on, would you check with Councilmember Longoria, since I'm
I'm
going to
sorry.
do this tomorrow, just if he will give us express permission to sign his name to the resolution?
Councilmember Longoria, you still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you vote affirmatively on that, or?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
And will you give permission for us to add your name on that, since you're not here?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay. let's see, we've got. All right, did we vote on that? Make sure.
You did.
Okay.
You did.
All right, so that's approved. We'll move on to our next item that we added with the agenda change.
Our final item under new business, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Milton in opposition to House Bill 176, limitation on municipal zoning authority for cell towers.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, bring this one to you tonight because there has been some controversy over a bill that was introduced in the House that I believe we need to go ahead and take a position on. It is House Bill 176, and what it seeks to do, if it were to be successful in any condition that it exists in today, is to regulate away local municipalities' ability to regulate through their zoning code the site placement and height restriction and coverage area stuff. Basically removes your ability to regulate cell towers in Milton and places that responsibility with the state. It would remove our ability, you can read the bullet points, remove our ability to even determine a rental rate for a cell tower that we place in our property. It seeks to have the state be the group that would do all these things. As a piece of legislation, being a part of a municipality and with the fundamental belief that good government is the government that governs closest. This is moving the wrong direction, and I think that it's moving in the wrong direction enough that we should at least tell our local delegation more officially what our position is on it. I can tell you the city of Sandy Springs adopted a very similar resolution last night, and the city of Alpharetta will be contemplating one early next week. This is our last meeting in February, which is why I thought it was appropriate to bring it forward quickly. I'm happy to answer any questions. This just sends our message that we would like to retain these regulation authorities locally as opposed to giving them to the state.
And this is a piece of legislation that the GMA, I know, is in strong opposition to also.
That is correct.
Yeah, I would just add too, I mean, obviously, and I think even for our citizens' sake, you know, whether you support, approve, or don't approve cell towers, it's good to have the control on the local level rather than the state. So, is there any other questions? Okay, I'll open up the floor.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Milton in opposition to House Bill 176, limitation on municipal zoning authority for cell towers.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion for approval. Councilmember Luss, second by Councilmember Thurman. Any comments? Joe, did you hear the motion?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that's unanimous. Okay. We'll, any council members want to report on anything? I hope everybody joins us in the city for the mayor's run Saturday morning. So looking forward to that. I need some other people that maybe could join me that, you know, don't run a lot. Might be real slow. So, but anyways, it's funny. I was telling somebody the other day. I said, you know, they were asking me obviously if I'm going to run, and I said, well, I'm going to run. I just hope no one, you know, watches me or times me. But what I'm excited about is just it's another event that just seems to bring the community together, and you know, people have fun, and I'm just excited about the city of Milton. So, anyways, hope everybody.
Where is it starting?
It's over in Deerfield by the Coles. So.
Same place they had last year.
Okay.
And they've got the Public Safety Foundation golf tournament coming up.
Yeah, and then in April. Is it April
May
or
1st?
May.
It's May 1st.
Yeah. Okay. As we added in our agenda tonight, we had an executive session to discuss current litigation. Shouldn't take but a couple of minutes, but we can have a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion to move into executive session and a second to discuss current litigation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, do I have a motion to reconvene the meeting?
Second.
A motion is second to reconvene. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Do I have a motion to
Move to adjourn.
adjourn the meeting?
Second.
I have a motion, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.